All right, now we get into the talk story part of the evening where we talk about Hawaiian culture, history, legend, language, healing, and the philosophy that we call Huna, based on 7 ideas about life. That the world is what you think it is, there are no limits. Energy flows where attention goes. Now is the moment of power. To love is to be happy with. And all power comes from within. And effectiveness is the measure of truth. We talk about all these things in the way that I was brought up in this knowledge, and that's by question and answer. And so what I like to do, what I've been doing recently, is starting off answering some unasked questions. And then we'll get into questions from you about the topic. So I'd like the topic that we're going to give as a framework for the evening is what we call the 4th principle of Huna, which says that now is the moment of power. Right now. Now, what does that really mean? This moment. Why would we use that as a principle? You may have heard that in a lot of spiritual teachings, that you'll be here now and things like that, but it takes on a particular significance coming from this culture. One of the reasons is, and I've shared this before, so I'll share it again, is the very nature of Hawaiian thought that comes out of Hawaiian language. The Hawaiian language is a language that has no past tense and no future tense. Everything in Hawaiian, in the real Hawaiian language, everything is related to the present moment. So although today we translate certain particles as meaning past tense and future tense, they really don't mean that. For instance, there's a particle that's used for completed action. Very simple word, it's called ua. And when you put that in front of a verb, it means completion. For instance, if you said ua hele, now hele means to walk. If you said ua hele, that means the walking is over and done with. And if you said ua hele oia, which means he walked, or she walked, or it walked. You got to know context in Hawaiian. But if you said that, let's use the word he, and it would mean simply that his walking is over and done with as of this moment. But if you're putting in this into modern translations, it comes out as he walked. But see, what I want to point out, it doesn't really mean that. It means as of now, his walking is over. Complete. And if you said, if you wanted to say, for instance, he's going to walk in the future, then it's slightly different. It's e heliana oia. And because you add a couple particles in there to indicate ongoing action. Now the way it's translated is he's going to walk. And we think in English that means sometime in the future he's going to walk. In Hawaiian it really means as of now he is walking and probably will continue to walk. That's the sense of it. As of now he's walking and probably that will continue. You see the big difference here. In English and in all the Indo-European languages, which is far more than just Europe and English, and it goes all the way through to most of the Indian languages of India, that's why it's called that, they all are very dependent on past and future concepts. And in many of those cultures, most of those cultures, past and future are very important concepts. And very often the past is giving a great deal of importance. The future is given a great deal of importance. And the official scientific definition of the present moment is the interface between the past and the present. The past and the future, rather. The interface between the past and the future. That certainly does not give much significance to the present moment, whatever it is. Okay? So people are, this affects our society in so many ways. In healing, for instance. In healing, it becomes very important to know a person's past history and what went on and what were all the causes and what were all of the influences and what happened to their parents and all this stuff happened. Why in the past. And then it's also very typical in modern medicine. Next step is prognosis. What's going to happen in the future? How is this going to turn out? How long will it take to get well? How long will you be sick? When are you going to die? Okay. And very little is paid attention to the present moment. In Hawaiian healing, which is one of the reasons when it's used, it's so tremendously effective, none of that is important. Doesn't matter what the past history was, because that's gone. That's done. That's ua. That's complete. What matters is what's going on now. What is happening now? What are you thinking now? What are you feeling now? And the future, hey, that's going to depend on what you do now. It's something fixed. We hear a prognosis from a doctor and we think that's written in some kind of concrete block or stone that the future has to follow that track. And all they're doing is giving you the results of a statistic that they were taught. That's all. They don't tell you that, but that's all they're doing. Based on all the cases that have been studied, the percentage of people who have this particular effect is such and such. And so they'll give you the highest percentage of probability. It's got nothing to do with what will actually happen, because people are individuals, they're not statistics. And so much else plays a role, like feeling and hope and intention, desire and healthy behavior. Okay? Lots of stuff. So the Hawaiian concept says, look at the present moment. Here is where the problems are. They're not in the past. Here's where the problems are. See, because there is no past. Nobody here can prove it. But don't have to get too esoteric right away. What you're relating to is not the past because it's not around anymore. Like I say in my classes, you cannot get wet from yesterday's rain. You cannot get burned from tomorrow's sun. Okay? Here's where you're living. Okay? You're not relating to any event that ever happened in your past because it does not exist anymore. What you're relating to, if you're relating to anything, is your memory of that event. And you can't get around this, folks. That memory exists now. And there's your problem. Change your relationship to the memory in the present moment, and you can change all the effects of that past event. And how do we, this is nice theory, but when we use healing techniques based on that, we get these incredible results. So all of this orientation is in the present. And the future? People plan for the future, which is not a bad idea. That makes sense. But you make those plans now. And you open yourself up to feedback from experience to change those plans if you want to. If it looks like this plan isn't going to work, change the plan. Nothing sacred about plans. Every present moment, you look at the plan, you look at the feedback from what you've done, and you make adjustments. Right? But you do that in the present moment. Here's where we begin to create the future. We don't wait until something happens out there because you have no idea what's going to happen. The future is this immense field of possibilities. Some of them are probabilities because we can look and see patterns and remember patterns. It's probable that the sun will shine tomorrow again. Highly probable. No guarantee, but probable. Right? So we base our lives on a lot of these probabilities. If we find a fishing hole in the ocean, it's probable, based on memory, that those fish will be there tomorrow too. If they've been there for the last 25 years, it's probable that they'll be there tomorrow. But the typical Hawaiian of the ancient times would go to that fishing hole, planning on catching fish, and wouldn't get mad or upset or scared or frightened if they weren't there. They're not here today. Come back tomorrow. See if it's changed. If it is, it is. If it isn't, they make a different plan. See? Whereas a lot of people in the modern world, if things don't turn out the way they've planned, they get all tremendously upset, or they get angry, or they get fearful, or they blame themselves. They think they're a failure because their plan didn't work. It's just a plan. When we bring our attention more into the present moment, this is an incredibly rich experience, more so than most people will ever realize. The experience potential that's in the present moment. And so with that as kind of a basis, a framework, we can go on and have questions on any of the topics we mentioned right at the beginning, or follow this one through if you want to. Okay. Yes?
I'm wondering how the Hawaiians would have said that they were going to take a trip tomorrow and they were going to walk. They aren't walking yet.
Oh, they would have to.
How would
They would have to use the same phrase, but it would be interpreted in context. So, e hua ka'iana au would mean, I'm going to take a trip tomorrow. You'd say tomorrow. I'm going to take a trip. Now, if you're not already taking a trip, then it's understood by the person that you're talking to that this is an intention. Okay? Context. A different context, if you said that while you were in the airplane, then the Hawaiian sitting next to you, ancient Hawaiian sitting next to you, okay, would realize that you're talking about the fact that you're on a trip and will probably continue to be on one tomorrow. Okay? So it's context. Okay.